Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your live afternoon safari. I'm sorry that you missed out on the dawn safari. I'm afraid nothing to do with us. It had everything to do with dear Mother Nature and her machinations and desire to bless us this morning with a lot of rain. It rained continuously last night. I think we've probably had in the region of 25 millimeters of rain, which, if you are still living in the 16th century, translates to roughly an inch and a half. Roughly an inch and a half of rain. Not a huge amount, but for here it's a lot. And we were expecting, well, certainly 3 or 4 of us were expecting it to come in October and November. I thought November, actually. But we've had our first beautiful spring rains. They were soft and soaking and gentle, and they were a perfect blessing to what has been a very dry season. Now, where I am, my name for 1 second, before I fall on my bottom, I'm just going to quickly show you lots of heat coming out of here. You won't see the heat, of course, but there's wonderful heat coming out of here, and millions of termites knocking about, reveling in the weather and in the moisture that it's provided. And because of that moisture, they're now able to continue building their magnificent castles of clay. And these are the termites, Macrotermes natalensis. If I fall over, I do apologize. My name is James Hendry. On camera today we have Viam. Now Viam, in the absence of Eugene today, has been knocking about fixing various things that the rain decided to try and break for us. And if you are seeing this picture, it means that he has been successful. If not, then I'm talking to myself, and this is an entire waste of time. Please remember, you are on a live game drive safari today for as long as that we're out here. And we love to hear from you, especially as we didn't talk to you at all this morning. Hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting like a crested barbet, or questions at wildearth.tv if you happen to be on the email. On the other vehicle today, with a spanky new rain cover, specially constructed by he and I, Scott Dyson, and on camera with him, Jean-Dre, and in the control room, calming down from a mild panic, we have Nikki and Tara, who have been doing some sterling work around the camp today, trying to get things going so that we can bring you this broadcast. The only word of warning I have for you is that should it start to rain severely, we will have to rush for home at some speed. Scott, because of his special rain cover, will be able to stay out a bit longer, but if it does get torrential, I'm afraid we're going to have to go back in. That is because electronics and water are not good bedfellows at all. So, that is my story so far. The plan is to just basically see what tracks we can find. We weren't out this morning. We weren't out in the evening. We certainly didn't hear any lions. So idea is to just see what we can find and what's been knocking about this wonderful wilderness that we call Djuma. And in case you don't know where that is, it's part of the iconic Kruger National Park, here on the western fringes thereof in magnificent South Africa. Welcome to it, the first rain game drive. Here we go. I must plug myself in, otherwise you won't be able to talk to me at all. Right, here we go. You can see that ominous cloud there. Thankfully, that one seems to have blown over us. If you could see behind us, though, you wouldn't be greatly comforted. That is a spectacularly ominous cloud, in fact. So quite unusual. I'll tell you why it's unusual. We don't, I've been in this area now for nigh on 15 years. And we do get the odd smattering of rain normally around this time of the year, but never like we have, or very seldom like we had it last night. That's normally reserved for much later in the season. And it wasn't a big storm that came through, it was frontal rain. And that's why it was lovely and soft and soaking. And the first thing we're going to do this afternoon is head down towards the Djuma waterhole, which is now something more than just a puddle. I'm sure those catfish that were boiling about in the last remnants of it are now most pleased to have something more to swim in. So what I would like you to try and imagine is that we've got the wonderful smells of petrichor, which you very kindly keep reminding me the name of. Petrichor is the smell that the earth gives up after the rains come. And those birds that we were herding in front of us, sorry about that, were Natal francolins. So what I would like you to imagine is the smell of the petrichor, the very dusty, dry grass smell, which is so characteristic of the winter and the early spring, has been replaced with a much heavier sort of moist smell in the air. The atmosphere is heavy. And it is quite cold. There's a bit of a breeze blowing. It's only 13 degrees Celsius, which is not particularly warm, or 53 degrees Fahrenheit. So, I mean, definitely time for a little jersey and my little woolly hat. So let's go down to the Djuma waterhole and see what we can find. We're on quarantine clearings now, and you can see that the sky is probably about 65 shades of grey. Low hanging, water-laden cloud. And like I say, we can be nothing but grateful for the rain out here. Not a particularly wet part of the country or the world, so we're very grateful for it. Now, what's interesting is I don't know what's going to happen with the grass. It's a little bit early into the growing season for the grass, but I think it's going to flush now. I think it's going to turn green. So in 2 weeks' time, you will be astonished at the change in the vegetation here. So also bear in mind, take a mental picture or a screenshot, dependent on your technological skills. Take a screenshot, save it, and then take the same thing again in 2 weeks' time, and you will be amazed that we're in the same place. I'm going to stop quickly here before it flies off. There's a bird on the road called a hardy-dar ibis, and one of many ibises, of course, in the world. And the hardy-dar ibis has got an onomatopoeic name, because it says "Hada! Ah!" That was pretty good, wasn't it, Liam?
Brilliant.
What did you give me out of 10?
9.5.
Thank you very much. And that's why it's called a hardy-dar ibis. They are the bane of Johannesburg living. They are flourish there because of the crickets called the terrifying king cricket called the Parktown prawn, which lives in Johannesburg. And the hardy-dar's favourite food is that red and black striped king cricket. It's a magnificent little insect, the king cricket, but does send children and various other, and men indeed, scampering and leaping onto chairs when it comes into the house. I can remember many times as a child calling for my father when the king cricket, aka Parktown prawn, emerged from under a chair or something like that and terrified the wits out of us. Produces a very evil smelling black substance when threatened. So Betty in Cincinnati, welcome back. I believe that after some hiatus you stumbled across the website again, and here you are. You find yourself on live safari. I think you last joined us some time back. Well, it's wonderful to have you back on board, and please keep talking to us. It is lovely to have you talking to us. And then Lynn, you would like to know if the termites are going to come out early. Well, they're certainly out already. We saw, there's a beautiful little Natal Franklin, which I was slightly disrespectful to earlier, so we'll stop and have a look at him or her. Lynn, and the termites will definitely come out early. They are already starting to build. As soon as the rain starts, they'll start to build their castles, just like we had at the beginning. And I'm assuming you mean the alates, the emergence of flying termites, the culmination of a termite mound's purpose. and I'm not sure if they'll be early or not, but we'll certainly watch out for them. That's one of my favorite things to see. That is the Natal francolin. Not very common on this reserve. They're certainly not rare generally, but not that common on this reserve. And that sort of whirring noise that you heard was a laughing dove, two laughing doves chasing each other. They didn't look like they were laughing to me. But it does seem to be a sound. If we have a listen around the place, there's a kind of a joyful song from the birds that wouldn't necessarily normally be loud at this time of the day. And I think the little patch of cloud over us seems to have lifted slightly, and so there's a bit more light, and so the birds are suddenly starting to call. Ring-necked doves and crested francolins, a couple of weavers, and we've just seen some red-billed buffalo weavers, and VM showed you the nests just as he zoomed out from that francolin, and they're the sort of large stick conglomerations on the edge of the trees. Thanks, VM. Sorry about that, I meant to mention it as you were on it. And there they are, and the red-billed buffalo weavers are now suddenly very excited. They're adding to their apartment blocks and preparing to produce little baby weavers. Right, let us press on and have a quick look at this waterhole. Aubrey, I think, went out this morning, brave fellow, and see if he had any updates from this morning. Aubrey, do you copy Aubrey? What we will do, as per Astralina's request, is to show you evidence of rivers or flowing water. And here is the first example, right in front of us. Now that is the spillway from this Djuma waterhole, and it has certainly set up a little flow, and that will flow down into the Umlulwati drainage line. But we'll keep a lookout for them. The roads are going to be in a fairly poor state, I suspect. Yeah, from this rain, and there's going to need to be quite a lot of repairs. Right, here we are. Now, for those of you who are regular watchers, just take note of how this waterhole has changed, and for those of you who aren't, it was a puddle about 2 meters by 2 meters, or 6 feet by 6 feet, until yesterday when this beautiful rain started. And you can see all the clay around it, which used to be a very grey, kind of hard-edged, almost rocky, baked kind of a thing, is now soft. And you would not walk very far in there before you sunk deep into the mud. Lovely feeling of doing it, but obviously quite a dirty business. Aubrey, do you copy Aubrey? Good afternoon, Orbs. Was there any update from the... Copy that. Right, so there it is. Aubrey It says that there wasn't a game drive this morning, so he is in the dark as much as we are, which is actually quite nice. I quite like the feeling of expectancy that we're going to get now. So we drive around and see what tracks we can pick up. It's very exciting. On we go. So those catfish will be in a state of absolute joy now. You can actually see them in there. You can see the bubbles that they're making. There we go. Virginia in Kentucky. Just on the subject of the rain, you want to know how long it's been since we've had a good rain. Virginia, you know, it's been, I think, certainly I got here in late May and there wasn't any rain then, and there hasn't been any until last night. Yeah, I think it was April, wasn't it?
Last rain?
Yeah, even March.
Long time.
Yeah, probably March that we had any rain at all, and proper rain. I mean, there were only 250 millimeters in the last rainy season, so we've had a tenth of that already. And you say, are there any animals that are young enough to have only seen their first rains, or to have seen for this to be their first rains? Yes, the wild dog pups. They, of course, are born in winter, so they would never have seen rain before. None of the birds, because they will breed in springtime. I wonder about some of the cubs. Maybe the hyena cub, absolutely. First time it's seen rain. So we've got, I mean, there are various ages, but the very little one definitely wouldn't have seen rain yet. And then, of course, maybe that perhaps remaining Styx cub, if it is still alive, would have seen rain for the first time last night. Oh, that's an ominous sky. Oh, Paul, you have struck on something that is, it is the, what should we say? It's a kind of a paradox, if you like. The bush looks beautiful when it is green, but as Paul points out, isn't it harder to find the animals? Absolutely it is. And that's why we as guides and trackers really prefer this kind of dry weather, because it's much easier for us to see. We can see miles into the bush, and it's just, yeah, a lot easier to find things. And you say, how does it affect the predators, you ask? Well, it does affect the predators in that, well, you've asked in two ways. In fact, you've asked in one way, but I'm going to tell you in two ways. The wild dogs love it when it's dry and open, because their strategy is to chase something down. There's no stalking and hiding. So that's why they give birth in winter. It's easier for them to hunt when it's like this. The cats are pretty unseasonal breeders, so they don't worry too much about it. But certainly, as you have guessed correctly, it is much easier for the cats to hunt when it's raining or windy or when the weather's bad. So absolutely, you'll find that a lot of the antelope and that sort of thing will come out into the clearings if the weather's bad, and that will just help them to see what's coming to get them. Very good question, Paul. Interestingly, just on topic, somebody asked me the other day if leopard were seasonal breeders. Now the textbooks will tell you that they are not, but when I thought back just to do my brief time at Djuma and the amount of leopard mating that's taken place now, which would result in babies being produced in December time when there's that plethora of young impala, I began to think to myself, maybe they are slightly seasonal. Probably not strictly like seasonal. Sorry. I was just saying sorry to VM because I took off half of his jacket with the Sisyphus. But he's a stout fellow and he hasn't bashed me over the head with his coffee cup, which I'm most grateful for. Regarding the rain competition that we had, now, there's been some debate from various people. Georgianne and Andrew, there was, in fact, a victor. Now, Deborah and Georgianne, there was a victor. Now, the victor, I believe, to be Andrew. Jean-Andre will try and tell you that he was the victor because he predicted rain that was going to come. I then pointed out to him that he predicted it on the back end of a weather forecast yesterday, and he looked sheepish. So I'm not going to give the victory to Andrew. I'm definitely not going to give it to Brent Leo Smith and myself, because we thought the 20th of November. We were way out. So I think it's Andrew and possibly Brian. Brian had a bit of an intuition about it. When did he say it was going to be? Today. So Brian and Andrew, I think, were on it. When did you say? In October. So VM was a month out, which is much better than the 2.5 months that Brent and I were out. Babbler. Arrow marked babbler. Yeah. There we go. You can just see them there. Not a great picture. The reason I stopped was because it's so covered in water, and you see they really don't like to fly wet. And you can see them doing a little bit of aloe preening there. Now, to preen, of course, is to cover the feathers and the barbs of the feathers in the special oil that comes from the glands that they have, and that's supposed to waterproof them. But as with most wet weather gear, unless it's oiled regularly, it doesn't stay very dry. That is the arrow-marked babbler. And then a question about whether or not I think that it's going to be an early rain season. I don't think it's going to be an early rain season. I mean, it's not totally unheard of for it to be like this. What's going to be interesting, I'm not going to predict any further because I'm going to end up with further egg on my face. What's going to be interesting is that after such a quiet or dry year last rainy season, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens now. And you may notice that my face is lit up slightly. And that is not because there is a light behind me, or indeed because I am an angelic at all. It's because the sun seems to be making a valiant attempt to break through the grey clouds behind us, which is wonderful. Okay, let us continue. It has always astonished me, I must tell you, that despite the fact that a 20-cent black plastic bag which you would use as a bin liner, is completely waterproof, entirely waterproof. No matter how much money I seem to spend on wet weather gear, eventually whatever I buy becomes as porous as a tea bag. And I find that both disconcerting and well, I'm just slightly astonished that the engineers of the world haven't managed to come up with a decent wet weather thing that you don't have to oil to death or wash in some fancy substance that normally doesn't work. So, curious one, just going back to the Juma waterhole, you want to know what the catfish are eating. The catfish, Judith, are eating the same thing they always eat. Bits of dung, algae, and other bits and pieces that have rotted and fallen to the floor. All that means now is that they have a greater area to do it in, and I'm sure that they've got quite a boon, given that now the water covers so much greater area. And Judith in North Carolina, you want to know if animals would ever get stuck in that mud. The answer, Judith, is absolutely they would. And there are lots of records of, sorry, I'm just getting through this difficult area. Plenty of records of elephants getting stuck in the mud. Not so much here, but certainly in Botswana. And sometimes they die, and sometimes the herd manages to get them out, and sometimes some kind people come across them and help them out. But absolutely, animals can get stuck in the mud, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, elephants are the most vulnerable to it. So, boys, the Nkahumas, or any of our leopards, easy to see if they have been walking along the road. And as many of you will know, while we're talking about catfish, that when it gets dry, what they do is that they will go down into the mud. They form this sort of mucousy film around them, and that keeps them relatively moist, and they seem to be able to breathe somehow through little holes that go to the surface. So if that had gone completely dry, that's what the remaining catfish would have done, those that weren't eaten anyway. And Joan in England, you'd like to know if that was enough rain for some of the other catfish to come out of the mud. Joan, I think absolutely it is. I think there will be probably quite a few catfish who have spent rather less time than they thought they were going to down in the mud, and they'll be up now frolicking about, having a bit of a feed. Just getting an update on the radio. Nothing of great import, I'm afraid. Lovely smell. Beautiful fresh smell. I suppose I should have thought of this. I keep mentioning various people on the radio, assuming that you know who I'm talking about, which of course, why should you? David in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, thank you for pointing that out to me. Aubrey, who I mentioned earlier, is a ranger or guide at Djuma. And Djuma, apart from being the home of WildEarth, is also home to two very nice commercial lodges where people come and stay and they go on safaris, and Aubrey's one of the guides. And one of the other guides that you'll hear us talk to quite a lot is Taxon. He's also a guide there, and then there are various other guides around the place. And of course there are lots of commercial lodges around where we work, and yeah, various guides, but those are the two main guys in the area where we work. Thank you, David, for insisting that I clear that up. Right, we're coming towards the eastern section of Djuma. While we are not looking at anything particularly exciting animal-wise, I shall answer Don's question in Massachusetts. Don to know if I've ever taken my parents on safari. Don, I have taken them on safari. They've come to visit me at the various lodges I've worked at throughout the years. And my mother, of course, is quite terrified of my general skills. I was a fairly clumsy child, you see, and she's basically, if I'm behind the wheel of any kind of a vehicle, her heart rate goes up to about 180 beats per minute. If you add a couple of elephants into the mix, it probably goes to about 250. She goes pale and almost passes out. But my father certainly enjoys it very much. And my mum over the years has mercifully managed to trust me more behind the wheel of a vehicle. And so yes, I have taken them on safari. And yes, we've had very good times together in the wild. Some of my fondest memories, although we weren't a sort of bush-going family as youngsters. My mother, in fact, has never camped and will never camp. It's not really her thing. I do have some wonderful memories of time spent in Drakensberg and also at some of our country's game reserves. And I think those memories are definitely touched by, obviously, the very good relationship I have with my parents, but also the wilderness and the effect that it has on our human relations. Yeah, where are the animals frolicking about in the spring rain?
Drying off.
Drying off. Well, I wish they'd dry off in front of us.
You have any shame, Dave?
Good point. So we're driving around a fairly quiet piece of bush right now, and Ashley, you would like to know, does the rain energize the bush or does it calm it down and quiet it? I don't know that there's a definite answer to that. I think certainly the predators like to move around when it's rainy. Sometimes they don't though. Sometimes they just lie in abject misery under a few guarri bushes. The lions, of course, being cats and leopards likewise, don't love the feeling of water upon their skins. But I find normally after spring rain like this, and now you can see the sun is coming out, normally there is quite a lot of frolicking about as the animals are energized by the freshness of the afternoon or the morning. I certainly feel an air of expectancy right now. It will turn to an air of well, I mean, I'm really hoping to see something nice. Let's just quickly show here, if you don't mind, the pan there. So there, everybody, is a pan. Now, a pan, for those of you who don't know, is supposed to be a naturally occurring waterhole. Now, that is very clearly, well, I don't know. I think that has been excavated, I'm afraid. But it's not a dam. And these sorts of pans, where there are natural depressions in the earth that have been turned into much bigger depressions in the earth by warthogs and then buffalo and then elephants and perhaps the odd hippo wallowing in the mud, and rhino, of course. Those pans hold water after rain for some time, and that's what a pan is. So we might often hear us talk about the word pan, and I'm not sure it's a term that's ever used in North America or in Europe. But a pan is a sort of naturally occurring shallow pond. And there, Viam is showing you the brave sun making a valiant attempt to shine down on this wonderful wilderness that we call home. Beautiful. I should have brought my sun hat, Viam. It's positively balmy out here now. You've got your sun hat on. It's a lovely feeling to have the sun on my face. nice discussion point from Dennis in Lakeville. Dennis, you do ask some good ones, I must say. You say, first of all, how widespread was the rain? Dennis, I don't know, but I think pretty widespread, and I tell you why, because it was frontal. So a big front came through the area. I know that at Londolozi it was raining this morning, and the storms tend to be quite localized, but this frontal stuff does often cover quite a wide area. Regardless, you say, if it wasn't widespread, would it attract elephants into the area? You've seen a documentary where it stated that elephants can smell rain from up to 50 miles away. Dennis, I don't know if you're perhaps referring to Planet Earth, maybe. There was a wonderful BBC show that they did a few years back called Planet Earth. And in, I think it was the first episode actually, there's that wonderful shot of the elephants coming across the Kalahari Desert to get to the Okavango or the Savuti Channel, I forget which, in order to slake their thirst. And it's an epic piece of filmmaking. Perhaps that's where the information comes from. Dennis, they certainly can sniff water from a big distance. I'm not sure if it's 50 miles. I think also, rather like the wildebeest in the Serengeti, elephants will follow the clouds. They'll follow the weather patterns as well as smell the water. So I think they're not only using their noses when they move to water. Good one. Thank you, Dennis. I'm sorry to tell you this, but Wendy, on whom Scott is trying to take a safari, is behaving recalcitrantly. She is not happy with the weather. She's clearly not happy with the rain cover that we specially built for her today, and she's not starting. So Scott is currently under the hood, as it were, trying to fix the problem. What do you got? Scrub there. Yeah. Brilliant, yeah. Look at this, look at this. That is fantastic. It's a scrub here. In what it's called, its little daytime, its daytime refuge is called a form. F-O-R-M, form. They don't have burrows like rabbits. And that scrub hare is under the impression that we haven't seen him. Did not bank on VM's eyes coming past today. That's brilliant. I'll try and go back. You're going to try and go back. If it does move, I'm sorry. There's a little scrub here. Now, we only see them at night. They're highly nocturnal, of course. Unless you're lucky enough to flush one from its form. They're all over the place. And you very, very seldom see them during the day. Isn't that lovely? Perfectly coloured. Beautifully coloured for this kind of vegetation. This is the best scrub hare sighting I've ever had. So in case you're wondering what the difference between a rabbit and a hare is, he's just giving you a bit of an example there. First of all, he's walking. They run. A hare, they don't hop like bunnies. They don't burrow. They live in these little forms like that one is, seemingly oblivious to the fact that we're looking straight at him. They're nocturnal, mainly, although I'm sure you do get diurnal hares as well. And most interestingly for me is that the babies, which are called leverets, the leverets are born altricial, at least precocial. So they're born with hair and eyes open, and they can run almost immediately. But a rabbit, because it's born in a burrow, is born blind, and I'm not sure if it's quite naked, but it's almost naked, and we're very what we call altricial, so totally helpless. It's wonderful. I think he's probably moving around like that to try and stay warm, covered in moisture. So being a nocturnal animal, it will definitely sleep during the day, and I'm sure probably was disturbed by the rain. I think possibly awake now because the rain has made it cold, and so probably is moving around a bit to try and stay warm. But ideally they will sleep during the day, relying on their camouflage. Yeah, brilliant. Look how when Viam pulls out, look how invisible that rabbit thing becomes. Isn't that amazing? Now that's the view, like you're seeing it now, that's the view Viam had when we drove past and he spotted it. That's fantastic. I can just see it there now. I would never have seen it. If I didn't know exactly where it was, I wouldn't see it. Beautiful, beautiful scrub hair. The only, I've lost the family. I will remember it. The only rabbity thing that we get out here. Lagomorph. The only Lagomorph. It's from a family called the Lagomorphidae. It's the only Lagomorph that we get here. Come on, little fella. Well done, Viam. Good job, good job. Now find a leopard, please. And on the theme of breeding, because a lot of things, of course, would like to take advantage of the new breeding season. Would they breed in spring? I think possibly they probably do breed in spring. Certainly they eat a lot of insects, probably the odd bit of root stock and fruit, so they'll want to maximize their food intake before they have their babies, and obviously just after they have their babies. So I think probably are seasonal spring breeders. Viam, do you notice a difference here?
Just keep it back.
Do you think, yeah, that's a good idea. This is Buffels Hook Waterhole, in case you are a new viewer and have never seen it before. This is the biggest kind of waterhole we have at Djuma. And I'm just trying to decide if I think it's bigger, and as Viam says, we must look at the back end. It's more difficult to tell. I don't think it's much fuller than it was, but possibly a little bit. You can see a little flash of blue sky there. But otherwise, not a lot coming down to drink here. And this, of course, is something that we don't take a huge amount of account to. You always hear people when they go on safari, or they go on these self-drive safaris, they go and check all the water holes all the time. After rain like this, a lot of the animals will gain enough moisture from the food that they're eating and not have to come and drink. So the rain really does make the actual finding of animals that much harder. But luckily, this place has got a pretty good concentration of game, well, normally, and so we should be quite lucky. Here we go. I'm going to go down our eastern cut line, see if anything's popped across. So we were talking briefly about elephants getting stuck in the mud, and Marianne and Shannon, you've asked if something got stuck in the mud at the Djuma waterholes, for an elephant especially, would we help it out? Marianne, the answer to that is yes, probably, because that dam is not a naturally occurring thing. So we tend to let things we tend to let nature take its course if there is no anthropogenic cause of the animal's distress. That dam is not naturally occurring, and therefore the mud that the animals would get stuck in is not naturally occurring, and therefore should an animal get stuck in the mud, we would probably try and help them out. It would depend quite a lot on the Sabi sands and their management policies, but during my time in this area, that's certainly my impression, that were an animal to become mired in the mud there, rather than let it suffer to death, if we could get it out, we would get it out. Obviously, if it was a big elephant, that would present something of a task. And I've seen video footage of elephants being towed, calf elephants being towed out of water holes by vehicles and excavators and that sort of thing. So, not here. I've got a video of what's happening in Malawi, but I think we definitely make an attempt to help out now. Yeah. See the puddles on the road, which is wonderful, and they will start to now attract frogs. And frogs, an amazing amazing class of vertebrate that I really enjoy, and just hearing them on a summer's night is a very special thing. So I'm looking forward to hearing my first frogs. Some more arrow-marked babblers. But on the mammal front, all is quiet. Nora, while we're driving along looking for some form of a heartbeat, you want to know what's the difference between Arathusa Lodge and Juma Lodge. I haven't stayed at either, but I have seen them both. Juma is smaller. It's got two little camps. I think they take 10 people in the one and I think 12 in the other. May actually be 10 each. Anyway, it's quite small. And it's an interesting model. It's the only one of its kind in the Sabi Sands. In fact, it's probably the best value bed you can get in the Sabi Sands. It's what we call self-catering. So you book the whole camp. You can't come in as a couple. You book the camp out. So if you've got 10 friends, you book out the camp. And then you decide what you want to eat. So you don't pay for your food when you get here. They'll order it for you. But then you sort of self-cater, and they'll provide you with a chef, and then you get a guide. And it's actually the best value way to explore the Sabi Sands. Then Arathusa is a lodge in a traditional model. It's a little bit bigger. I think it's probably got about 30 beds, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around that. And is run fully catered, full board and lodging, and you can book that as a couple if you like. And it's about, as the crow flies, not much more than 7 kilometers from Juma, and a very nice place to go and visit. Excellent game viewing, so it just depends on what you want, really. Thanks for that, Nora. Some tracks of a giraffe or a slipping buffalo. No, that's a giraffe heading north out of our reserve. Beastly giraffe. And the tracks, I'm afraid, before I noticed them, I'd driven over them, so not very good for us to see. I will try and find some others. We should be able to find some decent tracks today. You can certainly see on the road in front of us there, Viam, you can see the dung of the giraffe. There we go. How do I know it's giraffe dung? Well, I know it's giraffe dung. It looks like kudu dung and waterbuck dung, but it's rather well spread out. And it's rather well spread out because it falls from a great
height.
Correct, a great height it falls from. and therefore it is scattered. And that's one of the ways to identify giraffe dung versus, say, kudu or waterbuck. We're now on the northern boundary. It has headed north into Buffalo's Hook, sorry. Don't have a ring-necked dove on your bird list, which I find astonishing. I will do my utmost to find you one of those. There is, well, they're just very common around here. They're abundant. So we should be able to find you a ring-necked dove. And then James in Kansas, you want to see a lesser striped swallow. They will certainly be around the waterholes, like you suggest now, gathering mud to build their nests. So we'll definitely try and find a lesser striped swallow for you. I'll try and find you a picture of both of those. For those of you who don't know, a lesser striped swallow looks like a fairly standard issue swallow, except he's got small stripes on him, unlike the greater striped swallow, which has what, Viam? Big stripes. There we go. It's all right, Viam. We'll get there one day. Swallows, 248. Jigger does have a mind of his own, so he does tend to turn. The lesser striped swallow, sorry, you know what, I'm talking absolute rubbish. Yeah, I take that back. So the greater striped swallow is just a larger swallow. That's him there. That's the greater striped swallow. I do apologize, Viam. One day I'll get it right. If I had $1 for every time I had egg on my face, I'd be a rich man. So there is the greater striped swallow, and there's the lesser striped swallow. And they have beautiful calls. They've both got a sort of, especially the lesser striped, has got a very kind of metallic wonderful call. And that's the lesser striped swallow that James was asking about. And it's bigger. The reason it's called the lesser striped is that it's just smaller than the greater striped, even though the stripes of the greater are smaller than those of the lesser, which Viam knew, and I should have known, but did not. Just watching a... No, don't worry about it. Lilac-breasted roller. And then I'm just quickly going to show Mary in Michigan a laughing dove, because we did have a dove earlier. It looks also a pretty standard issue dove. There are all the doves that we get here. There's the ring-necked dove that Joan wants to see, and the laughing dove is quite distinct in that it doesn't have a ringed neck. And of course is found cackling hysterically all the time. There's the laughing jug. And the ring-necked there. Red-eyed, a bit bigger, pretty similar looking, and the mourning dove we don't really get here. You can sometimes get them here, but they're further north of us normally. Okay, one other dove species called the emerald spotted wood dove, which appears to be hiding from me. Where is it? There it is. The emerald spotted wood dove. That's the other dove that we get here. Right. I'm doved out, I think. Shall we press on, Liam? I do apologise once again for my casting aspersions on your ornithological knowledge. In Memphis, Tennessee, while we're talking about birds and bird calls, I don't know that I can answer your question. You say, what bird makes the sound like a Model T axle with a squeak? Do you have any ideas?
Mahindra bird?
The Mahindra bird. No, I don't think it's a Mahindra bird. I don't know, Kathy. If you hear it again, please quickly fire through a tweet and I'll see what I can, you know, I don't know. But you say the one that goes whip whir. Sounds to me like the ring-necked dove, actually. It goes boop, brrr, boop, brrr, boop, brrr. Maybe? Behold, Viam, what have we on the road there? It's not a ring-necked dove, is it? I think it is. Joan, get out your pen and get ready to tick off the ring-necked dove, for there in front of us, before our very eyes, frolicking about, is a ring-necked dove. There you are, Joan. Definitely a ring-necked dove. I have got my powerful binoculars out. It has a black eye and a ringed neck. Therefore, it is a ring-necked dove and not a red-eyed dove, which it could have been. Brilliant. There we go. That was quick, Joan, wasn't it? Please tell us what your bird list is up to, what number you're on. I'd be very interested to know. We can probably, in theory, see up to probably around 250 species here. So I'd love to know how many you've got. Driving along here hoping to find some interesting creatures and enjoying this rather the starting to become quite inclement now. We're going to pop across to Scott and he's going to give you an update of what he is. He's not moving, I'm afraid, but I'd love to hear what he's going to tell you about Wendy. See you later.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Safari submarine. You've got a brief glimpse of the structure, and some of you may have seen a tweet sent out by Nikki with a picture of this waterproof device we've tried to engineer. It's a modification on Peter Pretorius's old design that he made for the rainy season last year, and we were all caught up and actually quite ambushed by the rain. It's such a pleasant surprise. And I'm sure James has expressed all of our elation about these early rains. I'm certain a lot of the herbivores are going to be happy, and a lot of the reptiles and insects are now going to start to move. You can hear some clanking around there. This is Opa. Opa, would you mind coming and telling us what you think is the problem here?
Hello everyone, it's Opa here, mechanic. I want to say hello everyone. We are busy checking the jigger here. I think the power is not going into the engine, but I think we'll fix it with a few minutes.
Yes,
thank you.
That's good news. Thanks, Opa. Opa's our resident mechanic. We're going to let him get back to work because we would like to get out there as soon as possible. He's been taking apart a lot of nuts and bolts, checking the spark plugs, various things, a lot of troubleshooting, and I'm sure, like he says, it'll just be a few minutes until hopefully he gets this problem sorted. And we are quite lucky, I guess, that at least it's not raining, so James has managed to continue the afternoon safari with all of you. And we're not going to keep you here too long, as of course we just wanted to give you a brief update as to what's going on. And I hope you guys are having a great time with James. I hope he's managing to find you some animals. And like I say, it shouldn't be too long till we get out, hopefully. So crossing fingers, we'll see you out in the bush a little bit later. Until then, back to James.
Everybody, welcome back. I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but we've turned around, and that's because I want to go and see if the hyena den is active. It's a little bit closer to home as well, and the weather, like I said just before you went just before we celebrated Opa's world premiere on the internet, the weather is turning rather inclement. So we're going to head off towards the west and try and see if there aren't any hyenas around at the hyena den. I know there were some earlier this afternoon. Not a huge amount of track going on these roads. Indicates, well, I'll tell you what it does indicate. It's quite interesting. A lot of questions about whether animals are more or less active during the rain. And I think the lack of tracks anywhere indicates probably they're slightly less active during the rain. Probably quite active just after the rain. Well, just not where we are. Beautiful clouds that you're going to see now. Wonderful sky as we turn towards the west. Wow, that's magnificent. It's not particularly warm once the sun goes behind those beautiful gunmetal grey clouds. Isn't that wonderful? If you do lose our signal while we're going down this road, please do not panic. It is a little bit bumpy down here, and we are having one or two signal issues. So if you do lose us, don't worry, you will come back very soon. All right, Pia. What have you lost? I'm also looking to see if I can't find any other... That was where I'm cleaning the lens, not a bird flying into it. Look at this beautiful bird. A Birchall starling. Not normally this confiding. I suspect it is so confiding because it's feeling a bit wet and therefore struggling to fly with quite the same speed that it would normally. Anyway, there it goes. And Sharon, I'm just going to roll down the road. There's a little bee-eater here. It was flittering about here. There it is. Can you see it? You got it there on the ground. I'm going to stop here. I know your zoom isn't fantastic, but you get an idea of the beautiful colors. Look at that little bird. It's called a little bee-eater. Now, Sharon, you say you would like to see a waterbuck and that we seldom see them anymore. Sharon, I think waterbuck are the most abundant antelope that we do see. Perhaps I'm just not showing them often enough, but rest assured there's still lots of them around. Hey, Viam? Quite a lot of waterbuck we do see, especially around this area. So Sharon, I'll certainly look out for one. But I think there's a very healthy population of them here. Fear not. Isn't that a beautiful bird? Little bee-eater. It's the only bee-eater that doesn't migrate. We'll get a few others in soon, including the carmine and, of course, the European, which comes all the way from Europe. In South Carolina. Welcome. You would like to know what is my favorite bird out here. My favorite bird out here is the white-browed scrub robin because his call gives me a tremendous sense of peace. I do also particularly enjoy basileia, but I think if I had to choose one bird that I couldn't live without, it would probably be the white-browed scrub robin. And it goes like this. It goes Vatelier doesn't call quite so nicely. It goes quack, 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 which of course is just an unpleasant noise. Not so, Viam. Viam's eardrums have just exploded, unfortunately, because he of course is hearing me much louder than you are with his earphones on. But we will start to hear more and more beautiful calls, especially in the mornings when the sun comes out. Early dawn chorus will start to be very beautiful now. And birds, I'm just trying to think of some birds that we haven't been hearing that we will probably start to hear more of now. Certainly the most obvious summer sound that we get here is the woodland kingfisher. It goes chip, chip, and they're not back yet. They come back in October. Probably next month they'll be back. And what else will we hear that isn't normally here? The European bee-eater, of course. Lovely call. And you often hear them before you see them. They fly high up while they're catching insects, and they've just got a very nice bubbly, sort of liquid bubbly call. Some of the flycatchers will call a bit. Would you want me to stop? What do you think? Sorry, Riam's just complaining slightly about the rain. It is starting to drizzle a bit. So if we do have to stop, it'll be because we don't. Basically, if I let it rain and just carry on driving, Viam will eventually become electrocuted, and that will be that would be very sad, I feel. That's why he keeps cleaning the lens. Will you let me go? Let me know if we need to stop. Cindy, a nice question about disease, anthrax. You are going to lose signal here. Cindy, I'm going to answer your question once we've gone through this dip here, and then I will get back to you about anthrax. You on the blanket? The weather is becoming inclement. Sorry, there's a squirrel suddenly went wild behind us. I'm just going to see if I can't see what it's shouting at. Do you see a great plethora of predators anywhere?
Giant tree cat.
Like a giant tree cat? Dark shadow, perhaps? I don't see anything in there. I might drive in there if it was on our reserve, but it's on Buffels Hook, so we can't go in there, I'm afraid. And the squirrel has stopped shouting. Right, you're going to lose signal now. Sorry about that. Cindy, anthrax. You want to know the effects that the rain are going to have on anthrax in the soil and in bones, and will this make it less or more virulent? I'm not sure if a fungus can be virulent, but I don't know, Cindy, I'm not sure. I think as far as I understand it, anthrax is normally a threat when it's very dry. So as far as I understand it, the rain should probably make it a bit better, but I might be entirely wrong. So if any of our viewers are perhaps more more well versed in the ways of the anthrax fungus, please let me know. I think, Cindy, that this is probably a good thing though, as far as anthrax goes. We haven't had an anthrax outbreak here for a while, and certainly nothing while I've been here. Liam now has a blanket over the camera, and the sad thing about that, of course, was that blankie was meant for my little legs. Now they're going to just have to make do with the fur that they have on them. Now, of course, what the rain does, if you are a predator or a territorial animal, is that it wipes away the scent of where you've marked. So if you've been a leopard fastidiously marking every guarri bush in your territory, the rain will wash that away. Now, Shamrock, who is one of my favorite viewers, mainly because he watches at work, which I think is an excellent thing for him to be doing. I hope that when there are meetings, you watch especially then. Sorry, I'm just spotting some tracks here of zebra. No, nothing particularly interesting there. A couple of zebra tracks. Shamrock, you want to know, do the leopards and lions then go off and mark again when it rains? They do, you know. It's actually a well-documented phenomenon that when it rains, territorial animals will go out and mark their territories again. And it's a good time normally to find them on their territorial boundaries if you can find them. And then the second half of your question is, do they do it on a sort of regular schedule? No, they don't, you know. It tends to be probably largely dependent on how often they eat and where they eat as to where in their territories they mark and when they mark them. It's certainly not predictable enough for us to be able to say, well, it's Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, we should be able to find Karula around here right now. So no, it's not particularly well scheduled. Good question. Don't work too hard, Shamrock. Speculating while we're driving along looking for some tracks. Well, you want to know, do animals follow each other's tracks? So would an animal be able to follow another's tracks like we do? I don't know if they do it by sight. I don't think so. You know, I think but they certainly do it by smell, just like a dog would. And I think that their senses of smell and hearing are so good that they would use those rather than sight to actually pick out tracks. It certainly would be much easier if you walked through the grass like this, if you had a strong sense of smell, to follow the scent trail of an animal rather than its tracks. Tracking is an extremely intellectual art form, the visual version of it. It's intellectual and it's very intuitive as well. And some people have an almost sixth sense about it, which I think perhaps some animals do too. But I think for those of us who learn as adults, it's very much a visual thing. And I don't think animals have to rely on that quite as much as we do. When I say it's intuitive, did you smell the fire there? Somebody close by, I suspected one of the lodges on Biffle's Hook, has lit a nice warm fire to sit around, and I can smell that. It's the most comforting smell in the world. Anyway, one of the interesting things about tracking, and especially amongst those who, most ancient trackers, which of course are the Bushmen in South Africa, and they've been doing it for thousands and thousands of, tens of thousands of years in this area. I remember hearing a story once from a filmmaker who'd spent I think he spent 8 years with them. Oh, you're right, yeah. You'll just have to excuse the tissue that VM keeps having to use on the lens. Otherwise you won't see anything, you'll just see droplets of moisture. And this chap told me a story once of how he went tracking with the Bushmen, and he learned to track with them. And one day they came across a track of an ostrich, and he looked forward and he said, the Bushman said, just over the next hill, the ostrich is going to be standing underneath a shepherd's bush. And the guy said, well, how do you know that? He said, because when I track, I become ostrich. I can see what the ostrich is seeing from the track. Now, I don't know what your take on that is, but they went over the next hill, and there, sure enough, was the ostrich standing under a shepherd's bush. So, while those of us who learn it late in life, it's definitely a case of a very linear following, and yeah, you can guess vaguely where the animal's going to be. There seems to be an otherworldly, almost sixth sense, the way that the ancient trackers of Africa, the Bushmen, do it. Getting quite close to the hyena den now. I think it's worth just pressing on to get there, just in case we have to go in quickly because of the rain. Diana in a place called Higganum. Diana, please tweet us and tell us where Higganum is. I couldn't tell you to within a continent where it is. Do you have any idea, Via? You'd like to know, will the grass sprout now? Diana, like I said at the beginning, take a screenshot now and take it again in 2 weeks and you won't believe the difference. Now, it's now starting to get a little bit rainy. Do you want this? Right. Okay. Feels like a cloud is now going to sit on our heads. All right, we're going to keep going for a little while. If it does get any worse, we will go to the highlights reel and I will try and get out of this kind of wet area. We're nearly at the hyena den, so we'll stop moving fairly soon. And that will be very helpful to us. We must remember, of course, that this rain is a blessing. It is in no way a curse to us. Is it, Viam? Even if you happen to be sitting on about, what, 10 batteries. 600 amp hours, he says, lifting his feet off the floor of the car. A little bit of drizzle falling, and Mausu, you want to know if we get tornadoes or hurricanes here. We get neither. There have been the odd incidents of tornadoes in the Free State, which is up on the high ground, highland areas, flat highland areas of South Africa. There you do find tornadoes every so often. A hurricane, Mausu, only occurs in the Western Atlantic, as far as I understand it. The equivalent here would be called a cyclone, and it might come in off the Indian Ocean. They don't tend to affect us off the Atlantic on our west coast. But the Western Atlantic forms the hurricanes that batter the United States and the Caribbean. Those are called hurricanes. And then the same sort of phenomena that cause hurricanes we call cyclones here, and they sometimes hit the east coast of Mozambique, and they do cause dreadful flooding. We're not in the midst of a cyclone now, though. I don't think. We'll head there, yeah. Oh, there's a hyena and another vehicle. Look at the little one. The little one's out. Look at the little one. 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 seen it away from the den. I don't want to frighten it. There is somebody else here, so I think we're just going to stop pretty quickly. Stop here. This is definitely the furthest we've ever seen the cub away from the den. Isn't that lovely? So the two generations here, for those of you who perhaps haven't been watching for long, two generations of hyenas. One seems to have been born around February, and that little one, which is now straying quite far from the den, was born in June. And it was born black, of course, and is now, oh, look at this. This is just so special. And it's now losing that black color and going spotty very fast, in fact. Every day it seems to become more and more spotty, like its little brother there. Very curious about the vehicle. I wonder if there isn't an adult close by, and that's why perhaps this little thing is so confident. Covered in mud. A bit like Scott and I were after we'd built the rain cover for Wendy, which was superfluous, unfortunately. Sorry about the dashboard, everybody, but we can't help it when they come so close. And it is definitely the closest that that little cub has come to our vehicles. Look at that. We will sneak it. We're gonna keep watching that little one for a while, and we might sneak a little bit closer. And you're hearing in the background a number of different birds. One of them, of course, is my favorite, the white-browed scrub robin. There's all a bird going, and that's a woodland kingfisher. Not a woodland kingfisher, brown-hooded kingfisher. Pity for you, pity for you. I think there's also a drongo doing a bit of a mimic. Birds are definitely going crazy down in the drainage line there. Should we go a bit forward, yeah? We're just going to sneak a bit forward, everyone. Through ahead here. There's the adult, can you see? Way at the back there. I'm just going to wait here, I don't want to frighten them. There is an adult in front of us. And I'm sure that's why this little one is remaining so confident. And of course that play behavior is extremely important. those jaws are going to become some of the most powerful jaws in Africa, and indeed the world. And so harnessing and training those muscles and the neurology that drives them is an extremely important part of being a young hyena. Now what's interesting here is the color of that hyena that's changing, and I'm going to get into that just now. So there's another adult coming through, and there are a few mothers here. Now, hyena will naturally habituate to vehicles. They don't tend to worry too much about us. But like lions, they are very confident because they live in a group. So unlike leopards, which have required some very pioneering people to habituate and show us that we can actually view them on foot. Now that's greeting. That is the way hyenas greet, and every time I see it, I am relieved again that I am not a hyena. Anyway, they will habituate pretty naturally to vehicles if you hang around for long enough. Especially if their parents are not afraid of vehicles. Isn't that wonderful? That's just very typical hyena greeting behavior. Smelling and sampling of the genitals. And I don't know if you can hear it, but the adult, that's the little one calling. And there's another adult at the, not adult, I think that's the oldest cub there in the den. He's a bit big to be in the den. I think probably taking some time out from the rain. And that bird that you can hear is a fork-tailed drongo calling just above us. So we made the comment earlier, and we were asked earlier if there were any animals that would have seen rain for the first time. And this cub, of course, is definitely one of those animals that would have seen. This would be the first time that they've seen rain. And Charlie, you make the comment that he must be overwhelmed by the feel of rain. He does look very excited, I think, Charlie. I think it's a she, actually. So she does look very overwhelmed and very excited. So precious. And we're so lucky to spend time there. Now, if in case you're wondering, just, Viam, can you get in on the pseudo-penis there? I'm not sure if you can get me closer. For those who perhaps don't know, that is not a penis, if that's a female, it's a pseudo-penis. And you can see by the shape whether it's a male or female, and I think that looks pretty straight. The males are pinched off at the tip, and that one seems to be pretty straight, so I think that's a female. Now, what you did see with that cub that was sticking its head out of the hole is that it's quite high up on the termite mound. And Peggy, on email, you're wondering if that could ever flood. Peggy, unless the rains that were similar to those that caused Noah to build his ark were to arrive, it's highly unlikely that that would ever flood. It's very high up. You can see there that it's quite high up on the termite mound, and the other, I mean, in extreme cases, I suppose it could possibly flood a little bit, but no, very unlikely that it would flood now. So I was just saying about the color, which I think is quite interesting. When that hyena is born, it's black. Now I'm going to ask you why you think it's black when it's born, and why now that it's coming out of the den, it's turning spotty. There you can see his color, not black anymore. It is much darker than the adults, but you can see that it's starting to get that adult pelage. Why do you think that is? I have a theory. Now you tell me what you think, and then I will tell you what I think. Now, a very interesting question. It's going to get itself stuck in a knobthorn there. Oh, it's so sweet. Suze, you want to know what is the evolutionary advantages to males and females having a penis. Remember that the female doesn't have a penis. She's got a pseudo-penis. It's an enlarged clitoris, and she's got a false scrotum. And the reason for that, from an evolutionary point of view, is that I don't really know what the advantage is. But there are no disadvantages, and I think the reason that it is there is because they have a much higher testosterone level than the males. So the real question should be, why is it that the females are bigger in this society, and what is the advantage of that, and what is the advantage of having females with higher testosterone levels than males? Now I think, as with so many mammal adaptations, it probably got something to do with infanticide. Males in species like lions and leopards engage heavily in killing each other's babies. Males do not tolerate youngsters that they do not believe to be their own, and will kill them readily, whereas a hyena male, if it comes anywhere near thinking about doing that, it'll get dead, basically. The females are much bigger and much more dominant. Do you hear that? I think it was the drongo. James in Kansas, drongo is mimicking a lesser striped swallow. Not there. There. It certainly sounds the first half of a lesser striped swallow call. I initially thought it was one, but it isn't. Anyway, so the advantage to having the female with higher testosterone is that I think that it reduces infanticide. That obviously results in far less energy expenditure, no wasting of energy. And the other, of course, important thing about that is that I've now lost my train of thought entirely. No, not important thing. So the important thing is that it's the pseudo-penis and false scrotum is probably a byproduct of the fact that the female has higher testosterone, and I think the evolutionary reason behind the increased testosterone has to do with infanticide. So you can tell me if you think I'm talking nonsense, but I think that is the reason. There's all drongos calling now, mimicking various different things. Carol in New York, you want to know, surely it must hurt to give birth through a pseudo-penis. Carol, I couldn't say for sure, but I don't imagine it's the most comfortable activity in the world.
But what it does do is that the pseudopenis, I think, becomes almost internal during the birth process. And while I'm sure it's very uncomfortable, I don't think it's substantially more uncomfortable than it would be for a human being to give birth or any other animal to give birth. Especially, I don't know what this one's playing with at the moment.
Like elephant dung.
Elephant dung, that's brilliant. It is carrying elephant dung, which it just would be for playing. As Gracie, aged 8 in Ohio, likes to ask quite often, do the young animals have toys, or do they make their own? And Gracie, well, if you're watching today, there's another example of hyenas making their own toys out of elephant dung. I've seen them do it with wood too. That's so sweet. With a wet fur. Must be such a relief to be dry after a night of rain and wind. Now, we were chatting about males and the fact that they're smaller than females and infanticide and that sort of thing. And Deborah in Ontario, you want to know... Oh, here comes this little thing here. Deborah, you want to know, do males, will they be accepted back into the clan if they go away to mate? Deborah, what happens is that the males will disperse out of the clan before breeding age. So they will go and join another clan. And so that's basically how it happens. That's how they avoid inbreeding. The males will go off and join another clan, and that will help them to spread their genes and to avoid any kind of inbreeding. Good question. And they'll be chased away by the matriarch eventually. Mary, Heidi, Deborah, Laura and Shamrock have given answers to why it is that a hyena is born black and then turns to the color that you're seeing it now. And I think you're absolutely right, all of you. It's born black because it hides in the den. So were a predator to come along and stick its head into the den, they wouldn't see anything. That animal is perfectly colored to be hidden in a dark hole. Now, as it's starting to come out of the den and move around, that kind of grey, there's a little bit of gold in it, bit of brown with black spots, is an excellent color to be once you have left the den. So the 5 of you, I think that you're absolutely correct, that that's why a hyena is born black. So, for those of you who don't know, hyenas are more closely related to cats than they are to dogs. But they are actually in a family entirely of their own, called the Hyenidae, ironically enough. And they... Jeffrey, you would like to know why it is that this is the case. Why, when they seemingly act more like dogs, are they more closely related to cats? In terms of behavior, Jeffrey, I don't know that they are that much more closely related to dogs. They live in a matriarchal society, which dogs don't. They live in a pack with an alpha male and female. I suppose similarly here, normally only the matriarch will breed. No, in fact, that's not true. The matriarch and a number of other females breed, whereas in a dog pack, only the alpha will breed. They just look a bit more like dogs than they do cats, I suppose. And that's the major difference. But when it comes to scent marking and that sort of thing, they've got an anal gland, which some dogs, and I don't think wolves have them. No, wolves don't have them, as far as I know, and they scent mark with that. They've just got a very different kind of physiology. They scavenge a lot more than a dog. A wolf is far more a hunter than a scavenger. And so while on the surface they look a bit more like dogs, they do have quite a few cat characteristics, but they also have some characteristics entirely of their own. They're the only animal I know of that has this sort of very sweet. The only animal that I know that has this sort of almost hermaphrodite sex organs and unique breeding strategy. Beautiful little thing. We're so lucky to watch them grow up, you know. It's so much more sure on its feet than it was a few weeks ago, you know. It really is amazing how its coordination has developed. And as its colour changes, of course, this little cub will explore. This cub will explore more and more away from the den, and the fact that it's been holed up for the last sort of 24 hours, stuck in a hole. The fact that it's been stuck in the hole like that, and it's experiencing the new wetness of the rain, is making it frolic about. And Ellen in Arkansas, that's precisely what you've observed. That it's really frolicking about, enjoying the new experience of rain and wetness on the ground. Ellen, I think you're absolutely bang on there. I think she is definitely enjoying it immensely. Me again, everyone. Elise in Washington DC, you say, would this not make the hyena population much higher? I'm assuming you mean my comments around males and their dispersal. And the answer is, well, no. You know, the dispersal of hyenas, they will try and maximize their numbers like any species out here, and that is the most successful way to maximize their numbers. But then you ask the question about what their most common predator is and what will affect their numbers the most. And you're correct in surmising that lions are probably the greatest threat to hyenas, and probably other clans of hyenas. And so the male dispersal definitely does add to their success, but that's a good thing. And they're kept in check by predators. And of course, the big thing about that male dispersal is that it avoids inbreeding, which of course is very important out here. I'm going to sneak a little bit forward, just to see if we can't get a slightly better view of the top of the den there. Rain seems to be holding off for now. In case you're wondering where Scott has gone, he's gone nowhere. And that's not because he is at fault, it's because Wendy has decided that she is doesn't like the rain, and so she's not going out, despite the spanky new cover that we made her. I think you'll find that they're also moving around quite a lot because it's quite chilly. And moving around definitely does help to stay warm. So let's just have a listen. There are a couple of other interesting birds calling now. So I don't know if you can hear it, but off the drainage line there's a beautiful, beautiful bird called a grey-headed bush shrike. And as with most birds, it's not named for its most obvious feature. And its most obvious feature is its glorious golden, orange, yellow and green feathers. And it sounds like this. And that wonderful kind of eerie, peaceful, echoing sound has given rise to its Afrikaans name, which is spookvoël, which means ghost bird, and you can see exactly why it's called that. Lovely. You can hear some francolins calling, and definitely a brown-hooded kingfisher going, "Pity for you, pity for you." There we go. And a robin, always a lovely robin. There's also a mimic in there somewhere. I think it's the robin mimicking various other birds. What a wonderful place to sit and spend an hour or two. Beautiful birds coming out after the first spring rains, and this magnificent little playing and learning to use his incredibly powerful jaw muscles. And just as I mentioned earlier a few times, you can hear the brown hooded kingfisher in the background going, "Pity for you." Isn't that lovely? And there's even some hornbills going. That, of course, is Andrew's favourite bird. He's on leave at the moment. He'll be happy to know that the hornbills are in fine fettle. You don't want to be anywhere near those little jaws when that hyena eventually grows up into a 70-kilogram female, matriarch leader of her clan. And we've been watching these hyenas frolicking about and seeing how the water is sort of sticking in their fur and they're trying to dry it out. And Robert in Maryland, you want to know, do they get winter coats? They do, you know. It's not as pronounced as it would be where the extremes of climate are so much more pronounced, say in the northern hemisphere, in say Canada or America or in Britain. But absolutely they do get slightly thicker coats during the winter time. But remember, it never gets that cold here. We complain because we're just not used to the cold. I think the coldest it got this year was 4 degrees, and it's highly unlikely to go down to that temperature again. I am counting chickens, of course, but I don't think it will go down below that again. So while the animals do get slightly thicker coats, they don't get shaggy like those wonderful pictures of the Highland coos that you see in Scotland in the winter. We don't get very shaggy impala come the winter time. Yes, they do get a bit hairier, but not much. Nice question. Thanks, Robin. This hyena is intent on biting and biting and biting. A very, very nice question from Susan in San Francisco about why hyenas have evolved this long back that is lower down the back end, with a back end that's lower down from the front. Susan, there are a few reasons for it. One of them is that if you think of the design of a wildebeest, which is a magnificently designed animal for migrating, running long distances, seems to be a very good design for moving far. A wildebeest is a very good migrator, but not perhaps as fast as something like a zebra is, whereas a hyena is not nearly as fast as, say, a leopard or a cheetah or even a wild dog, and much faster than a human, but they can move for enormous distances and use very little energy. The other reason is that they have to support the tremendous biting muscles that obviously go into the skull, and they need to support the massive jaws and the force that they put on it. And if you look at a hyena, I'm just trying to see if this one will stand still for long enough. Their front legs, when he lifts his head up, when she lifts her head up, they are like a fulcrum. And it's the center of weight on a hyena tends to be just behind the front legs. Just behind the front legs. And what that allows them to do is to leverage the tremendous power of those jaw muscles. So, very good question, and that's, I think, are the main reasons why hyenas have got much longer legs in front than they do behind. There is a whole pile of adults just in front of us. We'll just have a quick look at them, and then I think we might move on and see what else we can find, unless you would like to spend a bit longer here. That's my bonds that you've got in your way there. Matt in Texas, you want to know if spotted and at least if brown and striped hyenas have the same social structure, a matriarchal social structure. They don't, Matt. As far as I understand it, they occur singly and in pairs. I'm going to check it up for you now. I've got a mammal app that I'll check it on quickly. But I'm pretty sure you do get brown hyenas sometimes here, but not very often. And I don't think that they occur they definitely don't occur in matriarchal societies. I'm just trying to find out if they occur in pairs or if they are on their own. Sorry, I have to keep performing some fairly acrobatic moves to keep my fat head out of the screen. I'm just quickly checking on my app here. Yeah, so a brown hyena, according to Jonathan Kingdon, a very eminent zoologist and mammal man of Africa, it says here that brown hyenas' home ranges are occupied by a small number of closely related adults, up to 3 males and 5 females, their immediate young and some sub-adults, numbering 14 in total. Now that'll be a home range that isn't necessarily a clan. So they'll live independently within a home range, and a home range versus a territory is actively marked and kept, free of intruders, whereas a home range is just an area where an animal lives. So that's the brown hyena. And the striped hyena, which of course is much more unusual and much smaller, solitary. are solitary, just coming together for mating. That's according to Jonathan Kingdon. So that's quite interesting. Very nice question, Matt. Right, well, I think we've got all we're going to from this magnificent hyena den. I think let's press on, see what else we can find. Perhaps some tracks, perhaps just some wonder. Oh, hang on a sec. We'll just have one last look at this little fellow coming, little fellette, I suppose. What's a female fellow, Jim? Beautiful. So much more confidence suddenly. Right, so we'll head off from here, see what we can see, and with any luck we'll pick up some tracks. If not, we'll just enjoy this very fresh evening starting to develop in the wake of the first spring rains. Drinks. Right. What you don't see, well you do when we drive past each other, assuming Wendy and Jiga are both in moods to go together, is the enormous aerial sticking out the back of the car, which can present something of a hassle to getting under the bush. Go. We may now go forward. Leaf. Great. My erstwhile colleague, Mr. Vian Gurenbrach, aka the Wildebeest. Let me just describe him to you quickly. Vian is 5'6", which makes him even smaller than I. But he has an appetite akin to that of a herd of elephants. And he's brought himself a picnic today. I think he's had 2 cups of coffee, a packet of chips. What else have we had? Have we had a banana? Vanilla yogurt and muesli. All while we've been on drive today. You'd never guess that a man of his proportions could possibly eat all that. Where he puts it, I don't know. But it does disappear at an astonishing rate. Clear. I did spot it, but it ran off. As soon as it was obvious to a possible predator. Still black? Are we still black screen? What? Is that a yup or coming up? Hello everybody, sorry. we did lose you briefly there. We are back in the house, as it were. There's just a bit of rain spotting, as you can see, and we've got some impala there, which we'll have a quick look at now. While I put on my rain jacket on the off chance that the rains return. Rain jacket is a very strong word for this item of clothing of mine. I feel like taking it back to the salesman who gave it to me. So that impala you can see very clearly there, and I do say this a lot, but it is the most obvious feature when the weather is like this. He's fluffed his fur up. And we had that question about whether animals get winter coats or not out here. That's, for an impala, is pretty much the winter coat. They have the ability to stand their hair on end like that. And that just allows them to trap air underneath the fur and keeps them nice and warm. Beautiful. They'll be loving this extra moisture. They don't have to go down to the water to drink so often. And I'm sure that dry, fairly nutrition-free grass is probably tasting a lot better with a bit of wetness on it. You can see, though, his shoulders sticking out. You can see the beginnings of his hips starting to stick out, and that's simply a function of the end of the dry season. Nutrition is very hard to come by at this time of the year. They really are very beautiful antelope indeed. That scratching that he's doing there, that's interesting, is they've got a specialized tooth in their mouths, obviously. That's where all teeth are, generally, in the mouth. And that tooth is on a little hinge, so it's quite loose. And what it does is it helps them to pick ticks off. Apparently it's a little bit longer than the others, and it helps them to pick the ticks off their bodies. Never relax, the impala. They just can't afford to be. They're the number one food for all the 5 major predators out here: lions, hyenas, leopards, cheetahs and wild dog. Impala just fits very neatly into the right size for all of them. Snack for a lion, good meal for a leopard, pretty good snack for a pack of wild dogs, and hyenas will just eat anything, of course. See the clouds moving past us there. You just see the movement, how fast they're moving. Beautiful. Right, on we go. Speaking of teeth, Liam had to go to the dentist the other day. Yeah. Managed to chip his tooth in the morning. How did you do?
Bit on sand.
You bit on sand. Like I say, he's very hungry quite a lot of the time, and clearly the kitchen wasn't stocked to his liking at the time. We're gonna pop across to Scott. I don't think he's mobile yet, but let's go across to him. He'll give you an update, and perhaps you'll get to see Opar for his second debut. See you later.
Welcome back, everyone, and as you can see, sadly our mechanic Opar is still hard at work. He's just under the hood of the vehicle. We call it the bonnet here in South Africa. I think it's different in a lot of other parts of the world. It's so frustrating. The car's so close to starting, but it just won't kick in. Anyway, Opar's now calling all of his friends and other mechanics in the area to see if they might have any little hints or clues as to what it could be that's causing the problem. Anyway, happy to hear that you had a wonderful sighting at the hyena den. The little cub's getting quite curious, I'm told, and quite jealous that I am not out there this afternoon with James, but I have complete faith that he's entertaining you guys and you're all having a wonderful time with him. At least hopefully we will continue working hard at this until Opa gets to the bottom of it, and maybe even if we don't get out this evening, which we're still going to try and do, hopefully it'll be ready for action tomorrow. Anyway, good luck out there, and keep your eyes peeled to help James and VM spot some interesting animals. I would suggest looking up in the trees before they get leaves, and after the rain that we've just had, I'm sure it's not going to be too long until we start seeing leaves. And after the rain that we've just had, I'm sure it's not going to be too long until we start seeing some fresh shoots coming through. Jandre and myself have just been chatting about John handing Opa the spanners when he needs them and starting the car every time he wants to give it another chance. Well, enough from us here at the Broken Down Wendy. We will be sending you back on safari with James and hope to see you later out there. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, welcome back to this eerie sight of an enormous bank of clouds building up to the south of us. Isn't that wonderful? It's not a sight we see too often out here, and so when we do, it's just wonderful to take advantage of the gorgeous skies created by this cold front. Gee, look at that. Isn't that magnificent? Right, another acrobatic move, and just behind me are some zebra, so let's have a look at them. It looks like a young stallion. Looking very clean. And also, I'm sure, loving the fact that he's got some fresh-ish grazing. And we've had a few questions today about when the grass will flush. I will certainly keep an eye out for it, and the first bit of green grass I see, I'll show you. It won't come just yet, but I'm sure when the sun next comes out, the grass plants here are going to start sucking up that new water, and they'll start to put out their leaves, which will be green. What a night, what an evening. It's always just such a privilege to be out here, regardless of whether we see a huge amount. For those of you perhaps new viewers, and I think Carla, you might be not necessarily a new viewer, but one who's just started talking to us, and so we're very grateful for your time, and thank you for your comments. Your question is, a few nights ago we had the Nkuhuma Pride killing a baby zebra, and lions go into a total frenzy when they start to eat, and they tend to fight a lot. And Carla, you say what prevents their feet getting bitten by another lion? Well, not very much, I have to say. One of the things we noted at that kill was the way that when Junior, who is a young 3.5-year-old male lion,
when he was fighting with his sibling, well, it could be a sibling or a cousin, 2.5-year-old female, or no, she's younger than that actually, she's probably about 18 months old. He hit her once with his great paw, and he got his middle claw stuck in the top of her head, and she just then went limp because she couldn't get away from him. I mean, and he had a lion's claw is about that long. He had it stuck right in the top of her head. So they get injured quite badly at the kills. I don't think they bite each other's feet too often, but I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen every so often. Good question. Do with some lions now, couldn't we, Vian? Wet lions, yes, that would be amusing. So the plan now is to head off. We've covered pretty much the whole of the eastern side. We're going to go a little bit to the west and see what we can pick up there. I'll also try and find another termite mound, another example of one where they've started to build again and adding to their castles of clay that they've made. Find evidence of them coming straight to the surface when the ground has softened up sufficiently. I was very remiss about earlier on in the day, and that I forgot completely about, and that I did actually read about early this morning. Jean and Raisa, sorry, I'm just looking on the ground, and Stephanie, you wanted me to point out that it is International Vulture Awareness Day. Well done, it is indeed International Vulture Awareness Day. Not a great day for vultures because it's cloudy and cold, which makes it very difficult for them to fly, and so they probably won't be doing a huge amount of flying around at the moment. But vultures, of course, play a massive part in the ecology of an area like this, and they are constantly being harassed, often on farmland. And I got to tell you, since I was a Jumera, I think I've seen far fewer vultures than I used to see in this area. So they are constantly threatened and certainly worthy of our admiration and our protection. For those of you who don't know, there is a vulture's nest on Arathusa, which is not too far from here. I'm not going to make it there tonight, I don't think. It's getting a little bit dark, and so we won't go and stick our head. We definitely don't want to put a light onto a vulture's nest. And there's a lovely wildebeest here. Now, obviously running away, so we don't have a look at him. Thank you, Mr. Wildebeest. That's very unkind of you. Anyway, might come past this way. So Anne and Raisa, I'm not going to go past the vulture's nest today. It is getting quite dark and I don't want to put a light in it, and I'm not sure, Anne, if it has fledged or not. And for those of you who don't know, there is a vulture's nest with white-backed vultures sitting on a nest. They've definitely got a chick there, which is wonderful, but we don't know if it's fledged yet. But it would be a good idea to go and check. So maybe tomorrow morning when the light's a bit better, we'll go and do that. Good idea. Endless different skies of immeasurable beauty that VM keeps finding for us. And Stephanie in Switzerland, while we look at this magnificent sky, and we've been chatting about vultures, you want to know about whether they are affected by things like anthrax. Stephanie, they're actually major carriers of anthrax, not within their physiology so much as on their bodies. If animals die of anthrax, vultures will go in and eat it, the meat, and then they go and bath themselves in water holes, and the fungus gets spread like that. They are not, as far as I am aware, affected by anthrax at all. So yes, they certainly do affect anthrax distribution, but they seem to be immune to it. Now I'm sure that's an evolutionary response to the fact that anthrax has been around a long time, and because vultures eat carrion, they've needed to evolve incredible abilities to deal with bacteria and viruses and other pathogens that might affect them. And just on the subject of diseases, rabies, of course, is another major disease that does occur out here. Ruth in Costa Rica, it doesn't express that often out here, but there are carriers of rabies. Squirrels, mongoose, leopards and lions can get it. Wild dogs absolutely can get it. Jackals will get it too, and they will express, and it will affect them very badly. So we have to be very careful of it. And normally what happens is that it's brought in by an outbreak outside in the communities here, and because there are almost no veterinary services at all out for the communities that live on the western boundaries of the Kruger Park, very poor people, and if their dogs pick up rabies, they often don't know about it. The dog usually goes off to die and just disappears, but there's definitely that's where the transference of rabies comes from. It's a terrifying disease if you get it as a human being. It's not common to get it as a human being, although you can get it quite easily from an infected animal. So certainly if somebody gets bitten by a mongoose or a squirrel or a dog or anything like that, the first thing to do is to go and have the post-exposure treatment, which is not too arduous, and will certainly prevent a far less arduous time for you to let the symptoms develop. Once they do develop in people, of course, that's it. Nobody can do anything for you, and it's really a very unpleasant way to go. Other major diseases out here that affect things like dogs would be canine distemper, and that has affected wild dogs in the area hugely over the years. Another beautiful sight. It's very artistic of you today. Talking about the dogs, James Bear makes a very good point that wild dogs smell pretty rank when the weather's good, like wet dog basically. I wonder, and he was wondering what they'd smell like now. James, I agree with you. I think they probably smell utterly horrific at this stage after a night of being wet, and I'm sure they probably went hunting this morning and caught themselves something which would have added to the general odor that they give to the bush around us. Just not this evening. About that, VM. Lyle in Whitby Island, Washington State. Sounds like a fun place to visit. On the west coast, I'm assuming. Well, it must be if it's in Washington State. Lyle, about 300 different questions rolled into 3, and they're very good. You want to know again about tracking, and can animals track us humans by smell, firstly. Secondly, we've been spending a lot of time around a young male leopard called Madiba, previously Sindile, and he is now, because we've spent such a long time around him, can he smell, is he familiar with our smell? And secondly, can he tell the difference between male and female, perhaps, human beings? Lyle, I say lots of questions because it actually opens up a huge number of different discussions. First of all, animals can absolutely track us by smell, there's no question. And I've been in situations where elephants have picked us up, and they will then try and find you, and they do that entirely by smell. They're very good at it. Obviously, with the scourge of rhino poaching that there is at the moment, there is an enormous amount of tracking that goes on with dogs, and dogs are used to track human beings, and that's because they can smell us. And another familiar smell, of course, would be the smell of Brent, Leo, Smith and Jamie, and that's who we're seeing now on our right hand side.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
James, how are you, sir?
Fine, and you?
Are you cold?
Yes, freezing.
Any tracks?
No, nothing. Have you seen anything?
We've got a bit of mud.
A little bit of mud.
Yes.
Okay, and Louise, of course, on the back, everybody. There she is. You hear us talk of her. That's what she looks like.
Hello everyone.
Hello, Louise. That's Louise is a world premiere, of course, much like Opar had his earlier today.
Obviously there's a fish eagle dissecting a catfish at the treehouse.
Right, I think we'll hie our way there. There's nothing else to look at. Goodbye. Have a wonderful evening. See you later. The inimitable Brent, Leo Smith, Jamie, of course, and Louise having an afternoon off while Tara and Nikki do the technical stuff in the final control. Right, now, back to the question from Lyle. Lyle, so, dogs are used to track people. I've no reason to think that cats wouldn't be able to track us as well, should they want to. They'd certainly track various other things very successfully. Hyenas the same. But now, here's an interesting one. Can they smell the difference between male and female? Well, there's definitely evidence that dolphins, especially elephants, can tell the difference between male and female human beings. There's no question that primates, monkeys and baboons know the difference immediately. Now, whether that's from smell or from look, I don't know. But I used to work with a fairly substantial woman, that is to say, big, and she was bigger than I, and where monkeys wouldn't come anywhere near me, they'd become habituated to her, and they would readily kind of approach her and kind of threaten her, and they wouldn't go anywhere near me. And so they absolutely can tell the difference between male and female. Can leopards, can Sindile tell the difference? I don't know. I would err on saying that yes, he probably can tell the difference. Whether that would make any difference to his behavior or not, I don't know. But I'm definitely sure that animals with their incredibly sensitive noses and ability to sense pheromones would be able to immediately tell a femininity from masculinity just from our pheromones, because we definitely give off different smells. And I mean, men smell different from women to me. I do have a particularly sensitive nose, though. That said, I'm unable to track like a bloodhound. Very nice question. Thank you, Lyle. And so we're going to go off to Treehouse Dam, see if we can't spot that fish eagle before night descends completely. You want to look, yeah? Liam is on cloud duty today, and he spotted yet another quite astonishingly magnificent and eerie sky. Look at that. Beautiful. And we're just going to have a little bit of silence now to appreciate this magnificent evening.
hope that gives you some idea of how atmospheric this evening is. The wind blowing from the southeast, you can see the clouds coming basically directly over our heads now, a particularly dark one at the moment. Birds still calling. And just this moisture-laden air carrying the scent of spring on it. It's just wonderful. Somewhere above there the sun is shining in all its magnificence, about to set behind the mountains, if it hasn't already. Right, let us head back towards Treehouse Dam, see if we can't find that fish eagle. I think it's probably going to be pitch black by the time we get there. I was yakking on about diseases and rabies and talking about mongoose and squirrels and that sort of thing. And of course, Lady Macbeth and Dennis have pointed out that bats are carriers of rabies, certainly in the US, and they are here too. That's absolutely correct. You don't want to be bitten by a bat. They apparently carry all sorts of other nasty things too. So being bitten by a bat is a pretty good way of getting sick, if that is your desire. Thank you, Lady Macbeth and Dennis. Very good points. And then we get lots and lots of bats out here, but very, very seldom have I ever heard of anyone being bitten by one. Plenty of terrifying stories of people getting them caught in their hair or landing on their beds. I woke up once in the bush and found one on my head. Its wings flapped gently over my head, and I didn't want to move, but I was slightly alarmed, I must say. Bats are generally around most of the time. They're probably a little bit nomadic, but they're not migratory like birds are. There are some parts of the world, I think, that they do move fairly substantial distances, but nothing like, say, a sooty shearwater, which will travel, we learned today actually, I think it's a distance of something like 3,000, no, in its lifetime, 1.25 million miles. So bats don't go that far. And it's 3,600 miles a year is what a sooty shearwater does. No, that can't be right, because that would that would mean that they lived for almost 300 years, which I don't think they do. I'll find out again. I think it's 30,000 miles a year for the sooty shearwater. But bats don't have the same sort of flying mechanisms. Remember, a bat has to just about, a bat must flap. They don't glide like the birds do. And the reason for that, of course, is that their food is just very different. They're normally hawking insects out of the air, or if they're a fruit bat, they can glide a bit, I suppose. But then they tend to be moving around in the trees a lot looking for fruit. Now, Helen, you would like to know if I think that we're going to get more rain. I have had sufficient egg on my face to tell you that I'm not going to make any predictions at all. I can tell you that it does seem to be breaking up a bit right now, but that's not to say that it won't close in. I don't think the front is quite finished yet,
but I'm not sure how much rain or if we're going to get any more rain tonight or tomorrow. And then Itch in Pretoria, Ignatius. Sorry, I'm just unwinding the 75 radios and 47 other wires I have here so that I might shine the spotlight on the leopard we're going to see imminently, I hope. Itch, you say the abundance of insects is going to be quite terrifying after this rain. Itch, you're absolutely right. There are going to be lots and lots and lots of insects, especially if it warms up a bit tomorrow. And as we go forward, it's definitely going to warm up in the next week at some stage. And then the insects will definitely come out and we'll be inundated, which will be very exciting. Because they're always nice to see. Different kinds of insects are fascinating, although some people do find them slightly terrifying. So Larry, in Orlando, Florida, where I believe you get one cold front every 4 years or so, you want to know where the fronts move in from. It's not quite complicated. Most of them originate at this time of year in the southwest, so around Cape Town. They batter the western Cape coast, and that's why it's called the Cape of Storms. Then they move up the east coast and up onto the Highveld areas, and Highveld means highlands, and then they tend to come sort of down to the south of us and wheel around and keep coming north from there. So our frontal weather generally comes from the southeast, and I'm not exactly sure the mechanism of how that happens, but this front's definitely blowing from the southeast to the northwest in this particular area, and that's generally what happens here. Then when the storms come, they normally come in from the north over the Drakensberg, over the mountains, and they blast in here, unless there's a cyclone off Mozambique, which is off to the east, straight in front of us, and then it'll come in from the northeast. So it does come from all over the place, but this frontal stuff that we've had over the last little while, that's coming from the south and southeast. Thank you for that from Florida. Hope your weather is good. Well, it probably is. Someone called Marsh Hare from the UK. You want to know why it is that I don't wear trousers and why I'm always in 6 layers on top, but I don't seem to own any trousers. Marsh Hare, since I was a small boy, I have hated wearing trousers, and so if I can avoid wearing them, I do. It just doesn't really get cold enough. I just put a blanket over my legs when it's a bit cold. I've got one over my legs now, and I just don't enjoy wearing longs. I do wear them if I am required to for a formal occasion, and in Johannesburg during the winter I had to wear them because it got cold enough for that, definitely. But that's basically why. I just prefer wearing shorts, and in South Africa I can get away with doing that just about all the time, which is very pleasant. Yeah, there's the first cricket I've heard for a while. Can you hear that? Not a particularly beautiful call. PM is not in fact looking for the cricket in the sky. He's just showing you yet another magnificent view, because I think finding the cricket will be difficult. It sounds like a mole cricket, and it is therefore probably in a hole somewhere around there. Okay.
that noise is one cricket, one very lonely cricket looking for a friend. It's amazing how loudly some animals, including humans, will shout in their need when they become overcome with the need for love, which is what that cricket is experiencing now. So we're heading down towards Treehouse Dam, and that'll mean that we've gone just about all of our water holes. Can I hand this to you? Just keep it there. I've spotted something, everybody. It might be a spider. And I'm just going to hand VM the spotlight and see if I can't go and see what it was. Its eyes were shining, and spiders' eyes do shine like that. Up a little, if you don't mind. Too quick for me, I think. Just over here somewhere. Can you see any? Can you see it shining?
Yeah.
Where?
Go down. More down. Yes, and a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
Check on it now. Other left, yeah.
Other left. Yeah.
Okay, more up. More up. More. Now left. Yeah, right there. Underneath your stick. Now it's running up.
Oh, there it is. It is a spider. It's a little spider. There it goes. Oh, I had him. Come on. It was a little spider about that big, brown and stripy, and I'm not sure what kind of spider it was. Some kind of hunting spider that doesn't build a web. And I'm sorry I couldn't show it to you, but you'll have to believe me that it was there. But at least we found one predator tonight. Yeah, it's a good thing. Well spotted. What we will try and do quickly is just see if we can't find a picture of it in the book. I don't have a spider guide, but I do have a multi-guide, which tends to be very good. It tends to have lots of different, the most common things. And we'll see if we can't find a spider in it. Well, it looked a little bit like that. Number 4, 6 to, oh, there we go. Could have been that one. Number 4, 6 to 20 millimeters in length for wolf spider. That's what I said, isn't it? That's a stroke of luck. Good guess. Brown or grey with symmetrical markings on abdomen, some very large. Most are free roaming, others build trapdoor tunnels. One genus builds a funnel web. Males pulp stick, blah 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 blah. Anyway, different eye patterns, and unfortunately I've only got 2 hands, but I do have a chin to balance the thing. The spotlight there indeed is the wolf spider, and that's what I saw. 6 to 20 millimeters, so that's about 2 centimeters. which is roughly the amount of rain that we've had, and about just less than an inch. We've had probably a bit more rain than that. Right, on we go. And bad news, I'm afraid. Bad news on one front is that Wendy will not be mobile today. I find that very distasteful of her, especially given the efforts we made to make her a rain cover today. So she will not be coming out. An itch has come back to me with an excellent point, which I'd forgotten actually. Those crickets' burrows are designed such that they amplify the sound of their stridulating, and that's why it sounded so loud. Thank you for that, Itch. You're absolutely bang on, I think. Gosh, it's getting a bit chillsome. Go up onto the, what is that? There. We'll go up onto the wall of Treehouse Dam. See what we can find. Treehouse waterhole. Oh, look at the beautiful reflections. I think this is worth another artistic VM Doornbrug classic. Deer in Miami. This has got much fuller, hey? Gee whiz. Deer in Miami, you ought to know where all the hippos go when it gets dry, do they? Because they're so dependent on water. Deer, in a place like this, they will head down towards the Sand River, which is a perennial river to the south of us by about 3 kilometers. So while some of them do set up territories in the waterholes here, well, not one this big, but certainly perhaps there's a big one just north on Buffelshoek. Hippos will set up territories there. If those dry out, they'll start to meander towards the rivers, where there will be conflict because the territorial bulls in the rivers won't tolerate new bulls coming in, and so there's often conflict. But as you say, the water is extremely important to them. They also found an Arethusa waterhole, which is just near the Arethusa camp. But if they dry out, it's towards the perennial rivers that they'll go. And if that Sand River sometimes dries out, if it does, then they'll go towards the Sabi River. You can actually just hear one calling there, way in the distance. But it's stopped now. Nice one. Thank you, dear. Try not to drive us off the wall. Ooh, slippy. So we're going to head off towards a little bit towards the east. We've now exhausted the west as well. Mary in Michigan, thank you for your consideration of the leopard orchid that I planted at Juma Dam a little while back. You're hoping the rain will help it sprout. Well, I tell you what, we'll go and have a look at it next time I'm on drive. That'll probably be on Monday. We'll go and have a look and see if the lily has sprouted. For those of you who don't know, I planted the pod of a leopard orchid in a hollow tree. They're an epiphytic plant, and so they grow in a hollow branch. And I planted one in the hopes that it would provide us with some flowers by Christmas time. That's normally when they flower. So I did spot a bush baby, but I think it's going to be too far away for us to look at. Did you see it, Liam? No, it's too far in there. Sorry. No. I'm sorry about that, Liam. I will do better next time, I promise. John in Atlanta. You're talking about the early rains and you're saying, will it cause a problem? Will all the trees start to flower early and will that cause a problem for them? John, they're early-ish rains. They're not that early, and you know, plants out here will take advantage of this. They'll make hay. If they've got water and sunshine, they'll just keep growing. So yes, one or two might flush slightly earlier than normal, but that won't be harmful to them at all. They won't be using you know, there's nightjar flying there. The earlier that they flush, the more the reserves that they can build up and the bigger they can get. So John, I don't think it'll have any deleterious effect on the plants at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Some secret animal rain shelter that I don't know about. Throwing around. So our last port of call today is going to be Treehouse, at least not Treehouse, Twin Dams, and that will be, we will then have covered every waterhole at Juna. Ooh, losing the back there, Liam. There's the water. Is it? No, it's a bronze-winged courser. Beautiful bird. Bronze-winged courser. No, it's not. I'm talking absolute nonsense. It's a striped thickney. Sorry about that, everybody. A striped thickney. Excuse my hasty identification. Striped thickney. Here we go. Pretty common, but very nocturnal. Perfectly coloured for the night, of course. Now a bit stunned by the lights, so we'll turn them off so it flies off. There it goes. Driving along during the night, of course, there are lots of different creatures that we could see at night that you don't find during the day. And Joyce in Pennsylvania, one of the ones you'd like to see is an aardvark or ant bear. I would also love to see one here. I haven't seen one at Juma, but Scott and a few others saw one the other night. Just to sort of to the east of us, sorry, west of where we are now. So they are definitely around, and we see their holes a lot, and sometimes we see their tracks. So Joyce, keep a lookout. I will certainly keep a lookout for an aardvark. If I see one, I shall be sure to stop. just as a recap, we had a huge amount of rain, well, for us, yesterday. Huge amount of rain yesterday evening. Sorry about the dodgy signal here. It will hopefully improve. The Dyker in front of us. We had, I haven't seen it measured yet. I know that there is a measuring device at Djuma, but I haven't seen the results from it. I think we probably had 25 millimeters of rain, Sonia, and in inches, Gilly, in Wisconsin. That works out to roughly 1 inch. Is that a bush baby? I don't know. It's too far. Sorry about that. So about 1 inch of rain, which is not too bad going for this area, especially if it doesn't come in a storm. It may be up to 30 millimeters, so it's more than 1 inch, but I don't think so. It was very gentle soaking. Some of the other creatures we might hopefully see at night, whose tracks cover the roads in the mornings, but I've never seen one here. White-tailed mongoose are common. Laura, you apparently would like to see a sort of regular update of the changes that are going on here. And Scott and Jean-Andre said that they're going to take a few sort of time-lapse spots to see the changes. Laura, absolutely, I think it's a great idea. And I think the best place to do it would be probably on a place like Drakensberger Road off to the far east, which offers a beautiful view out over the whole of this reserve. And so that will probably be the best place over the next few days and weeks to go and see the changes that will be wrought in the vegetation. VMP, will you just keep me posted on the time? See the puddles on the road, which I've never seen here at all. I'm a bit like that young hyena we saw today. It's my first time to experience rain at Djuma. I thought maybe I'd spotted a chameleon, but it was a piece of lichen. Might lose us again as we go through this dip. Sorry if you do. Giga is making a couple of fairly alarming creaking noises. Good idea to look in the thick bush here to see if we can't find anything in the way of a lurking leopard. Dear. I don't know if you can hear the mud slushing underneath the tires. I'll tell you what, driving around on the roads at the moment is making me think that perhaps we have had slightly more than the inch that I suspected we'd had. Night creatures are being about as cooperative as the day ones, I'm afraid. As a last ditch effort, we'll pop up onto quarantine clearings. Oh, what's that? Is it a rock? No, it's moved. No, it is a rock. It's a rock or a stump, everybody. How fascinating. There's a bush baby. We got him. A little bush baby in there. You might just be able to see the eyes. No, you can't see them in the camera. There he is. The lesser bush baby. Just in the middle of the spotlight. You can see his tail flicking there. And there's little ears. There's another one above him. Listen. Lions! They've stopped calling, I'm afraid. Beautiful call of lions miles away to the east, a long way, I'm sure. Probably on Torchwood, but a quintessential sound of the African night and the perfect way for us to finish our game drive. So, you can see how those wonderful little bush babies were totally unaffected by the sound of the lions, and that's nice to see. Thank you very much for your patience today. Sorry about this morning. Nothing we could do. Weather's out of our hands. It's been a wonderful day, a blessed day of first spring rains, and we're so grateful for it. We're also so grateful for the time that you spend with us and for your questions, and on a quiet drive like today, the conversations you spark are much appreciated. So thank you very much for all of those. A big thank you, of course, to my friend Viam the Hungry, who ate about 7 kilograms of food and drank about 6 liters of fluids while we were on this drive, and yet still has maintained his remarkable physique. Well done, Viam. A big thank you to Scott and Jandre for the 2.5 minutes that they put into the drive. Thanks, guys. Opar, I hope that you managed to fix Wendy by the end of today. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough morning for Brent Leo Smith on his own. And, of course, a big thank you to Tara and Nikki, who have had to run around and do all sorts of difficult things today to make the electronics work. Likewise, VM was running around, and also, of course, the inimitable Eugene. So, thank you to all of them. It's been a magnificent day of blessed African rain, and we will see you tomorrow morning, I hope, with a bit of sunshine. Maybe, maybe not, but whatever it will be a wonderful African dawn, and we'll see you then. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.